Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name has become almost synonymous with the civil rights movement, but the story just about how he went from local leader to a national civil rights icon is still relatively untold. In a moment, we talk to the man who in 1955 picked a young King to become that leader. It's all related to the little-known criminal case the next year of Alabama v. King. After Rosa Parks was arrested for failing to give up that seat, the 40,000 African-American residents of Montgomery, Alabama boycotted the local buses. That part is all well known. But when local officials couldn't get them back on the buses, the establishment tried to use the criminal law by prosecuting King, who'd been selected to be the spokesperson for the boycott, and 88 others as well. They indicted them for organizing what was called an illegal boycott. That case ended up exploding, getting widespread national attention, and suddenly Dr. King was front and center. Somehow that case has been forgotten. King's lawyer was a 25-year-old newly minted attorney named Fred Gray, who'd also represented Rosa Parks. In my new book, out this week, Alabama v. King, the fifth in a series, Martin Luther King Jr. and the criminal trial that launched the civil rights movement, Mr. Gray, David Fisher, and myself tell the story of the case that launched the civil rights movement through the eyes of the young lawyer who tried it. Gray, 91, still practicing attorney, was a young lawyer on the rise, one of just 2 black lawyers in all of Montgomery. Gray was very close with Rosa Parks, and while Parks had not planned on getting arrested that particular day, she and Gray had long discussed how they could challenge segregationist laws in the South, and together, they and others set the stage for the Montgomery bus boycott, the ensuing mass arrests, and the trial that followed of the then relatively unknown Martin Luther King. Prior to Parks' arrest, Dr. King wasn't known as a civil rights leader, even locally. Fred Gray and one other local African-American leader chose King to lead the boycott effort. And the moment that Alabama prosecutors chose to try to make an example out of King was the moment they turned him into a national figure in the civil rights movement. I'm honored to share a byline with Fred Gray. Earlier I spoke with him about our book and the trial that made Dr. King a national icon. Now, I remember when we first approached you about working on the book, you thought we were talking about initially the 1960, the tax evasion case. And when you realized that we wanted to write about this case, you got kind of excited about it. And I wonder why you view this case as so important.
I view the case very important because it wasn't the verdict in the case, because we anticipated what the verdict would be when we agreed not to try it before a jury, but before Judge Carter. But the problem of the buses in Montgomery for African Americans was deep-seated and really began long before 1955 or 1956.
You are now asked to represent and lead the team and organize a team around you for Dr. King. Did you have to prepare Dr. King for his testimony in this case?
We did. We not only have to prepare Dr. King, but we had to prepare about 40 more regular persons, African Americans, and one white person, Reverend Gratz, for the case. But it was easy to prepare Dr. King. 1, he was educated. 2, he understood what the law was. 3, he understood what the facts were. And he was thoroughly prepared to listen to the lawyers, but he also was prepared to defend himself and not get into any traps that the prosecutions may set for him.
Did you expect that this case was going to be a big deal? And when you first were part of the group that selected Martin Luther King to lead the organization involved in the boycott, you didn't think you were picking a national leader, did you?
We didn't think about a national leader. We didn't really think about starting a civil rights movement. What we were concerned with initially, at least what the community was concerned with, and the community's interest and my interest was a little bit different at least what was disclosed, and that is, let us solve this problem. But my commitment had been I was going to become a lawyer and come back and destroy everything segregated I could find, and that was in the back of my mind. And my legal training had told me and my experience of growing up in Montgomery was that regardless of that, while we can go through the motion, ultimately, we're going to have to go to federal court. So I will prepare every case that comes by as if it's going to the United States Supreme Court.
Where you ended up arguing a couple of very important cases
Yes.
in the United States Supreme Court on behalf of civil rights. Fred Gray, as I said before, such an honor to be able to have worked on this book with you, to have gotten to know you, and to appreciate the career that you have had. I truly admire you, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. But I want us to realize that the struggle for equal justice continues. Racism and inequality started when African Americans were brought to this country as slaves. We have been chipping away at it, and when we consider what happened in Buffalo a week or so ago, we know that the struggle for equal justice continues, and we're going to have to continue to work on it.
Well, with you leading the way, the movement certainly has an amazing ally and champion. Fred Gray, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The book is called Alabama v. King. It's available everywhere now. Comes on the heels of our books about Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, John Adams, Jack Ruby trial. Fred Gray's amazing, though. Coming up, thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.